Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I am your host today, Nathaniel, and I'm so pleased to welcome a special guest, Devin Trent, who is an amazing community builder of the proactive parents. And I had the pleasure of meeting Devin on school. We're involved in a lot of similar communities. I really love the perspective that Devin brings as a conscious parent. And I mean, there's so much robust things that we can talk about this topic. It's really near and dear to our hearts on the Love Pod, Devin. So I just love to welcome you to the show and to invite you to introduce more about who you are and why you're doing this really important work, especially as a community builder.
Sure. Thank you for the warm welcome and greetings to the audience. My name is Devin Trent. I'm a parent strategist and founder of the Proactive Parent Community on School, which, as Nathaniel said, is where we met on school. Um, I believe every child is different. I believe there is no one size fits all.
Mm.
I help parents figure out how to customize and tailor their approach for their specific child. Because, as I said, every child is different. What's helpful to one child might be harmful to the other.
Mm.
When it comes to parenting, there is no one size fits all.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in what you just said. You know, I was just on a call. We were in a community call too, and we were talking a little bit about parenting. And I remember Wayne Dyer. I think he had eight or nine children. I think eight, and he said, you know, I had as many children I had an idea, a concept of parenting that I applied to them, but every one of them was wrong. And I thought that was really, you know, humbling coming from, you know, such an astute, teacher and psychologist as Dr. Wayne Dyer. And, you know, I'd like to unpack that more. So as a parent strategist, what really is at the heart of discovering for your role as a parent and that unique relationship that you have with each child? What would you say are some of the kind of key pillars or values to bring to that kind of awareness?
One key pillar is accepting that the child is themselves. I notice that many parents and people in general will project their
Mm.
expectations onto others to assuming that other people will act like them. But fail to realize that everybody is their own individual. For example, I always tell a story about a competitive dad has two sons. Only one of the sons is competitive.
Mm.
The competitive dad, when somebody challenges him and tell him that he can't do something, he takes it as a challenge and it's motivation. He's motivated to prove them wrong. So he uses this challenge tactic with his competitive son, and it works. He tells him, son, you can't do that, and you can't do this. And his son is like, he takes it as a challenge. He feels motivated to prove him wrong.
Mm.
That works for him, but that don't work with the other son. The
Mm.
other son is not competitive. When you tell him that you can't do this and you can't do that, he's not taking it as motivation. He's taking it as hurtful words.
Mm.
So when I talk about parents projecting themselves onto their child, as if their child is a miniature version of themselves. You tell them to do the thing because you like to do that, but they are not you. They are them. You have to learn them.
Mm.
So that's what it's all about. Learning your child, asking more questions, and listening.
And it sounds a lot like also getting to know who you are and listening
Yeah.
to yourself too, because I feel like, you know, it's not always encouraged in our society to go on that, you know, that self-inquiry, that deeper sense of awareness, and especially since so many of us have gone through these institutional cycles and been conditioned, whether it's through a competitive nature, like I find, you know, it's interesting that you bring up competition because I've never felt like a competitive person. I've always felt like a very cooperative person. I always like the idea of bringing people together to do things, connecting people, being creative. To me, there's not a lot of competition when it comes to creativity. It's all to do with expression. So I've never really sought out like sports other than for like engagement and fun. To me, it was never about this idea of winning over someone. It was, to me, the real win is about actually rising to a certain level of awareness and to connect with what's real. And so I've never really, but I always wonder too, is there something inherently like less masculine about me because I am not like this highly competitive one who needs to win over people? And so I appreciate you bringing that in because yeah, I definitely felt like any kind of criticism that maybe was seen as a goad to want to motivate me, I definitely, as a highly sensitive young boy and young man, I would have taken those things as criticism and would have really it
Mhm.
would have affected me. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So it sounds to me like at the heart of it, a lot of it is just listening and meeting people where they're at, including yourself.
Exactly. We got two ears and one mouth. You should listen more than you speak. Ask more questions and make less statements.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the wallpaper on my laptop.
Mm,
Ask more questions, exclamation point, make less statements, question mark.
mm.
I purposely wrote it as like a paradox, as a play on words.
I
But
love
yeah,
that.
I think people should ask more questions. That's how you get to know. How do you get to know anything except by being curious and asking questions?
Mm,
People assume that they know things and they take actions based on assumptions, and those actions lead to misunderstandings. Had you took the time to get clarity, to ask the questions, to be sure,
mm.
to verify, then you could take proper actions. But when you just run on assumptions, you know what they say? When you assume, you know what they say when you assume. So yeah, get the clarity first.
Yeah. I like how you pose that also as a question. You know what they say when you assume they didn't even answer it. I great. That's
Yeah, they
great.
know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really appreciate that, Devin, and I feel like that level of communication is so important when it comes to being a proactive parent, to really get clarity on what things mean because a child, as they're developing, they might have different comprehension and different meaning as to what we might assume from our conditioned minds. And I've wondered a lot about this, and I'd like to ask you because when I listen to someone like Mr. Rogers, who spoke very at a high level, he encouraged, caring neighborly things, and he, talked and sang to the children as like an equal. And then I've seen other media types that are almost like placating the child, like as if they're like an ignorant sponge that they need to be like, and because I've always been the one who I'll like get down on my knees and talk to a child and ask them questions as though, not as though they're a grown up, and like I try not to use sophisticated language, but I really want to know their perception of things. Like I find it interesting, the states of wonder. I remember being in those days and just looking like life was really like a day was full, and there was full of magic in it. And so I'm wondering, what has your journey in terms of becoming a proactive parent and a parent strategist, how has that expanded your capacity for being in awareness of that development of the child and appreciating like their development and all of that and who they are?
Yeah, Jesus talked about being like little children,
Mm,
to have that innocence and have that faith and optimism and forgiveness and humility. Children can have an argument right now, and 5 minutes later, they playing again.
mhm,
But adults, they have a hard time apologizing and coming back together and being humble. Children have this innocence. I talk to some educators, and they talk about how they can see the transition
mm,
from, especially fifth grade to sixth grade. When the child that they had at fifth grade, when they come back from summer break on the sixth grade, some of that innocence is gone.
mm,
And I think it's life experiences, hardships, trial and error, trying to figure things out on your own. And so I try to help parents be proactive and guide their child through these tough lessons so they're not blindsided when it shows up.
mm, mm.
To do role play. What are you going to do when this situation happens? So now when you're in it, you're not in the heat of the moment. You have a plan. You have an idea. You know what to expect. You
Mm,
have an idea of what to expect. But yeah, some innocent. I think kids are innocent, and kids are um, they didn't ask to come here. They didn't have a choice. They didn't give consent. Somebody made a decision, and the child has to pay for somebody else's decision.
mm,
And I think that so who's responsible? So parents are responsible to give their child the best opportunity possible. And also, because I know the human race, we are a solipsistic race, selfish. People are going to do what's in your own best interest. So
mm,
to the parents, consider this. It's in your own best interest to support your child because eventually they will support you.
mm, mm,
Children, they begin as dependent infants, but eventually you will want them to be dependable adults.
mm,
How can you make sure that they become dependable adults? Somebody that you can depend on.
mm,
If, if,
mm,
if you're going to do what's in your own best interest, it's in your own best interest as a parent to equip your child with the right skills so they can become a dependable adult because you're going to depend on them at some point.
mm. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, Devin. And, I think maybe one of the greater pain points that all of us experience to some degree is when it comes to our potential and living up to our potential. And I think that any good-natured, parent wants the best for their child. They want to give them all the opportunities. And yet, that child is on their own unique journey. So you can only prepare the best you can, and then at some point without clearly there's always going to be some level of interdependence, hopefully not too much what's it called, codependence, but
Hmm.
there's always going to be some level of interdependence, and we're also in vastly accelerating times, and I feel like a lot of the maybe whether it's a complaint or concerns that I hear along from a lot of parents is, because they're mired in it too. Everything from like screen addiction to the challenges of keeping up with modern paces of society to all the societal changes we're seeing happen with AI and I mean just even the internet and how it's changed life so much. So there's a lot of factors to navigate being a conscious parent, and yet it's also still, like you mentioned, Jesus. I don't know if we talked much about the Christ's letters from Christ's way, but one of the things I find really interesting, because the principles have not changed, right?
Mm.
And if you're interested, can I share a little bit from the letters what he says about exactly what you said about being like little children?
Yes, and before you say that, I kind of want to put the thing in your
Sure.
mind. You said we're all on our unique journey, but then you also said that the principles are still the same.
Yeah.
You're not that special. Yes, you have a special situation, but you're not that special that you can't plan
Hmm, hmm.
because there's nothing new under the sun. But yes, please tell me what you said the letters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny. I wonder about a lot of things that we say as a species, even what you said, there's nothing new under the sun. I wonder, like it's funny, I feel like Wayne Dyer talked about this too. I'll bring him up again. He talked about memes and how as grown-ups we share beliefs, and memes are not, those little infographics that are funny on the internet. It's really about the mind viruses that we share, and then we just believe. It's because I wonder, if I agree with you that we're not all special. Like we have the same underlying needs, and I think they're really simple. Like we need to be happy, healthy, and have access to the resources that we need and a certain level of abundance. Um, and so that really actually is perfectly, a caveat to what he talks about in his Goad. He talked about one of the decisions that why he chose to be baptized, in his mid 20s was because he spent a lot of time rejecting and getting in arguments with the rabbis, realizing that there was so many people had their struggles of sickness and poverty, and people were just struggling even in those times for basic necessities. And he saw the religious orthodoxy of his time browbeating people and imposing their laws on the people who were already struggling, and he didn't think that did good whatsoever. But he also realized that he wasn't really contributing to the betterment of his community. And so I'm not sure exactly the word you used, but that selfish nature was clearly there, and he realized like he wanted to change. And so in going to be baptized, he just wanted to make a change for his life and say, I'm gonna use my life to contribute to the benefit of others. What he says in the letters is that he did not expect to be fully illumined by that cosmic consciousness and Christ's nature of loving intelligence, that he said it felt like his body would dissolve. And that's what led him into the desert in a very like like such an exalted state of consciousness. He felt so powerful that it was completely transcendent, but also led to total cleansing of his human consciousness. But one of the things that was really interesting was that he arrived at a certain place where divine consciousness was showing, or creative power was showing him the truth of life, that behind all these principles of existence, the growth and nutrition and all of these things, he was shown that love was the foundation of reality. And this sparked in him something really, it was the main question he had for God was, well, if love is the foundation of all being, then why is there sickness? Why is there poverty? Why do I see my community members struggling with such things? And he was shown the image of a very young infant baby being born of pure light. And as it grew in the ways of the world and started taking on beliefs and started its conditioned mind he described it as looking like it started taking on thongs and chains that covered its light and burdened it. So as it thought it was growing and developing in the ways of the world, it was actually moving further and further away from its true nature of being basically pure love. And so that was like a huge realization for him. And I realized that, when he says we have to return to that childlike state, what what do you think that means in terms of parenting too? Because I mean, there's so many different parenting styles. There's theories. There's all this stuff, and I'm really curious. Yeah, what your perception and perspective is on that, Devin.
To return to a childlike state.
Yeah, and in terms, especially with the parenting relationship, because we do have those responsibilities as you're talking about as well.
Yeah, the childlike state of innocent, being not jaded by the negativities
Hmm.
of society, of life,
Hmm.
of reality. Because life is not all fun and games. You're not going to be tiptoeing through the tulips all the time. Sometimes it's going to be happy, sometimes you're going to be sad. As a child, looking back at my own childhood, sometimes I was happy, sometimes I was sad. I would say it was more so happy because I
Hmm.
didn't have the pressure of paying bills and being responsible and doing things I didn't want to do. I mean, yeah, we still had to do things we didn't want to do, but for the most part, everything was taken care of.
Hmm.
I didn't have, I wasn't in like survival mode
Hmm.
where, fight, flight, freeze, or freak out. I wasn't worried about my physical survival, my natural survival. I think adults, you start to feel the pressure of if you don't perform, your physical survival is at risk.
Hmm.
If you don't do these things, you could lose your house, lose your car, lose your job. You can't eat, you can't feed your family. Now you're homeless on the street and you starve to death.
Hmm.
I mean, there's people, I live in Baltimore. There's plenty homeless people on the street today.
Hmm.
I don't know all their backstories, but I suppose there's a high probability that many of their backstories is in alignment with what I just said. Not being able to perform under that pressure.
Hmm.
S- you said, what are my thoughts of parents being like children?
Well, I
Am
think
I getting it?
in the context of like he says like only through the eyes of a child can you find the kingdom of heaven, right? And I do feel from my perspective and my limited perspective on the matter, although I've tasted some of that reality that he talks about in my own direct experiences, and that I can attest very strongly that love is real. It is a real power, and uh, it is an intimidating one. I feel like I only tasted a little bit of it physiologically, like, and to be in the world and to maintain that state so that your child can continue. Like, I mean, at the heart of it, I think Christ came to show a different way of living and a different way of being, where we could rely on our our true parent being God, being the
Exactly.
Father. And in the letters, he talks about mother consciousness, which is another conversation. But and I find that I what my greatest vision for our world is where we are. There is no more homelessness because we have realized our inherent interconnection as a species. That this idea of performing for basic subsistence to live is actually what's causing so much harm because we know, I mean, we know that being in a state of fight, flight, or fright is actually what prevents us from being in an abundant state where we're doing operating from our genius. So yeah, I guess my question is like, what your perspective to help a parent to be proactive in that, to be mindful of their state, and because if a parent is in survival mode, and even their child could be in a state of wonder, but they get to that age that bridge between the five and six, grades 5 and 6. I'm not sure exactly what that age. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it's like 8 or 9. Um, to prevent them from going fully into this fight or flight, to feel like they have to fight or retreat to survive, and finding another way. I guess that's my question. If that is more
Yeah.
clear or more complex, I'm not sure.
Yes. This word self-awareness comes up
Yeah.
when you talk about how to help parents stay out of survival mode. One thing is to be aware of what it is. What puts
Mm,
you in survival mode? What puts you in that panic state of mind?
mm,
Because there's two types of safety. Is it emotional safety at risk or is it physical safety
mm,
at risk?
mm,
A lot of times when people go into this panic state, it's because of emotional safety. They don't feel emotionally
mm,
safe. And a lot of times it's because they are confused. They don't know what to do. I had
mm,
a mom tell me one time before, I didn't know what else to do, so I just beat them.
mm,
That's what my parents did. It worked. It worked for me. Look how good I turned out. How good did you turn out?
mm,
Are you living your best life right now?
mm,
If not, then why not? Why are you not living your best life?
mm,
Is it because of fear? Is fear keeping you from doing the things that you
mm,
know you should do? Are you in survival mode? Are you afraid? People say it worked for me. Yeah, how
mm.
good did it work for you?
Mm.
We said how to help parents stay out of survival mode.
Yeah.
Being aware of it, being aware of self, taking the time to pause and reflect
Mm,
on what happened today and what happened this week. What triggered me to act the way I did?
mm.
Uh, if you see that you did something that you wish you would not have done, what happened right before that?
Yeah.
What triggered you to do that?
Mm,
And that comes back to this word self-awareness, and that comes back to patterns, pattern recognition. We talked about uh, everybody's unique, but we also have similarities. And
mhm,
over the course of time, over thousands of years, philosophers and psychologists have noticed patterns amongst people. And there are different systems for categorizing these patterns. One of them is MBTI, Myers-Briggs.
mm,
That's one that I lean on a lot. As you know, on school, that's one of the identities that you can let everybody know. I'm this personality type. Sam
mhm,
Evans has been very influential in problem solving and creating what we are, how we connected on school. It's a global, community based tool.
mhm.
that
Yeah.
has solved problems. It's been, a help. It's been a net positive.
Yeah.
And I think he sees the power in it. I see the
Yeah.
power in it. I
Yeah.
think the more people know about it, the more they could use it for themselves
Yeah.
to stay out of survival mode.
Yeah, you know what? There's so much wisdom there, Devin. I really appreciate. I do feel we're at the cusp of a new way of doing things, and there's a lot of people who are adapting. And there was also a lot of that fear. I mean, school is one of those things. I feel like it's. I think when we're on it, we can. It's easy to be ignorant to how many people in the world have no concept of what it is. And I think it's interestingly called school, because I think when I think of school, I'm like, well, I don't want to go back to school, so I'm not going to go on school. And so I feel like it's also not an educational platform. I mean, it does have education and it has classrooms, but really the community is at the heart of it. Um,
Exactly.
and so yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, there's amazing examples, many examples of people living through their passion, and doing very well financially, gathering people. And I think many of us who are on the journey now of building, maybe in the earlier stages, we see the potential and we know that it's a game changer for our families, and we're invested. And I also see the potential for a lot of people that I meet who could, who are maybe in those survival jobs.
Mm.
They're not living their best life because they feel like that's the only way. And yet it may be the only way that was true, decades
50 years
ago.
ago.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. But things have changed. I mean, there's like, teens playing esports, aka video games, and making like six figures. It's crazy how much
Exactly.
things have changed. What would you say? Like, so you brought up Myers-Briggs, and there's so many models out there. A lot of the kind of the popular ones that I see playing right now are like human design, the gene keys. I mean, some people are really into Enneagram and looking at that psychological spiritual model. Myers-Briggs, can you talk more about that and how you see its relevance, and especially in terms of like being a proactive parent?
Yeah. Patterns. You can notice patterns.
Mm,
Some people, okay, okay. Like you said, there's different systems. Some systems are based on external factors that don't have nothing to do with me. For example, astrology. Astrology says because you were born on February 15th, you are an Aquarius, so you should do this, this, and this.
mm,
Just because you were born on that day. I liken it to going to a restaurant, and you go to a restaurant and they say, "Oh, you were born on February 15th. That means you should have the shrimp scampi and strawberries and all this other stuff just because." But little do they know, I'm allergic to shrimp. I'm allergic to crabs. I'm allergic to strawberries. If I eat this stuff, I might die. So this system has nothing to do with me. But something like a Myers-Briggs system, which is based on pattern behavior, that's like going into a restaurant and they ask you some questions.
mm,
And they ask you, do you prefer this or do you prefer that? Do you want chicken or fish? Do you prefer spinach or broccoli? Do you want this or
mm,
that? And you tell them based on your preferences, and now they
mm,
can say, you should have this meal based on your preferences.
mm,
When you ask somebody, are you more introverted or extroverted? Do you get energized by being in a big group of people, or do you get energized by being to yourself? That's a preference.
mm,
That's a pattern that you can notice amongst billions of people. If you ask somebody, are you more of a concrete thinker where you focus on the present? You say, seeing is believing. If I don't see it, then I don't believe it. Or do you prefer to talk about abstract ideas, the intangible, the things that you can't see?
mm,
Based on your preference, we can assign a category. We notice a pattern based on what you said, not based on some external factor.
mm,
And so the whole system is just based on personality preferences,
mm.
and based on these preferences, you can notice a pattern. So, for example, you take somebody like an INTJ. They're introverted, they're intuitive, they rely more on thinking opposed to feeling, and the J is for judgment. They like to have a plan. They like to make a judgment call before they do something. They don't want to just wing it.
Mhm.
So INTJ. The opposite would be ESFP, which is somebody. I don't think we need to describe all of the things, but
Yep.
how can you use this? You can notice patterns from uh, all these INTJs and do like a poll or a survey. What happened? What triggered you?
Yeah.
And then the other one can say, "Oh wow, that triggered me too." And then you
Mm.
got all these millions of people saying, "Wow, that triggered me too." Well, maybe we need to make some. We need to take precautions to not let this thing trigger me next time. Or what am I good at? What am I strong at?
Mm.
That also ties back into you said the world has changed. 50 years ago, there was one plan, but now we got all these tools. The world is different. You can make money doing all type of things.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, people asked me, "Oh, Dad, what you want to be when you grow up?" I used to say, "I want to be a marine biologist. I love the water. I love animals and dolphins. I just want to go scuba diving all day." But we also talked about people are solipsistic and going to do what's in their own best interest. I promise I'm gonna bring all this together. I know I can bounce around.
No, that's fine with me. I'm totally neurodivergent, so I'm following.
People are going to do what's in their own best interest. It's in their own best interest to get their problem solved.
Mm.
Everybody has a strength and everybody has blind spots.
Mm.
Where you are blind, I might be strong. And where I'm blind, you might be strong. So I will pay you to cover my blind spots, and you will pay me to cover your blind spots. The name of the game is to solve problems. We all have a natural strength that somebody else don't have. So you can optimize that strength to solve a problem for all of these people. It's a blind spot for them. So yes, you can monetize your strengths. And it comes back to this MBTI. If you know your MBTI and you know what are the strengths of this certain MBTI, you don't have to go through 10 years of trial and error trying to figure out what to do.
Mm.
You can learn from the experience of others.
Mm.
So often people focus on the here and now and they miss the lessons of the past and they can't extrapolate into the future. And that's why things happen in cycles because people forget the past. That's why you got the boom and the bust
Mm.
because people don't learn from the past. They say, "Oh, experience is the best teacher. I gotta do it myself." No, I don't agree with that. I
Mm.
don't have to touch the hot stove to learn the lesson, not to touch the hot stove. I don't have to be a drunk driver. I can learn from somebody else's experience. Do you have to be a drunk driver to learn the lesson of don't drink and drive? Do you have to have that experience for yourself? To the audience, put it in the comments down below. What are your thoughts about learning from your own experience or
Mm.
learning from the experience of others? Is it wise to always learn from your own experience? Is it wise to sometimes learn from others? Tell me in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate this conversation, Devin, and your perspective on things. And I think a lot of the, comes to mind, this pattern recognition. Tony Robbins talks a lot about this and how, success leaves clues as well as, and I think we're all teachers and students in either as a warning or as an example. And so I appreciate the value of what you're talking about. And I feel like it's a larger thing to us to come to awareness as a species, to realize that a lot of the dilemmas that we're creating are from a certain level of consciousness. Just like Einstein said, we can't solve the problems that we created
Not
from a
aware
certain
of.
level of consciousness, right? And so, it's interesting. I've contemplated a lot of this, the problems, because it's a very active conversation, especially when you're an entrepreneurial, environment, and a lot of the focus is on solving problems, and that can also lead to a lot of noise, and I think even band-aid solutions. And I feel like there's certain level of qualities of like that. When I think of Christ now, I think of him, in a lot of ways, but I also feel like he presented a way of living, uh, and showed us what's accessible to us in terms of abundance of life when we are surrendered to a greater intelligence beyond ourselves that no words can describe what that intelligence is. And I wonder a lot about our identity, and how I like how you framed Myers-Briggs not as another layer of identity, which I saw that as problematic when it came to astrology, right? Someone identifies as, oh, I am a Aquarian, so this is me. And what you're talking about from Myers-Briggs is it's more about self-awareness and awareness of preference. Because to be honest with you, we talked before the show about this, is like when I was looking at the list, is like for a long time I thought I was quite introverted. Because the truth is I like solitude. I like doing things on my own, spending time in nature, meditating. I do get energy from that, but I also love being around people. So I'm quite ambiverted. And I can be very logical and strategic in planning, but when I'm truest to myself, I feel like I'm a feeler, and I can talk about, tangible things, but I'm definitely more of an abstract, creative, a visionary type. And that judgment and perception, I feel like I think I was conditioned to judge more, but naturally I'm more perceptive, and I like to just intuitively pick up on things that I see. So what I like about what you're saying is it's really, again, deepening our level of self-awareness. And I wonder if actually the solution that we're all looking for is in that mastermind, that loving intelligence that we can return to in a real sense, in terms of and I think of like Stephen Harvey comes to mind. He was talking about living in a van, and when he really started praying and talking to Creator for his life, where that his life just started taking off. And I wonder if this is all the solution we're looking for in the externalities, because we've been so conditioned to think, look for it in the stars, look for it in the celebrities, which we also call stars, look for it in others, when really a lot of the solution is just our own essence of who we are, and deepening that awareness. It's a question. I guess it's a more of a ponderance, and I'm hoping this adds dimension to the conversation we're having. What do you think? What are your perceptions?
You mentioned everybody's a teacher. They could be either a teacher of a warning or an example.
Yeah.
That band-aid solutions. Um, how do you know if it's a band-aid solution? You need feedback. You get feedback from others. You
Mm,
can't do it on your own.
mm,
You talked about a higher consciousness, a higher level of intelligence. What comes to mind is uh, um, collective consciousness.
mm,
How I talked about strengths and blind spots. It's called a blind spot for a reason, because you can't see it.
mm,
But what you can't see, somebody else can see.
mhm,
And if everybody is present, then we can see everything. There was one scripture talked about how the people are one, and nothing can be refrained from them, which they have imagined to do.
mm,
They all on the same page. Anything that comes to mind, they can do anything.
mm, mm,
And I believe that because it's written.
mm.
Um,
It's an interesting contemplation.
Combined consciousness, collective consciousness. When you come back to survival mode and scarce resources, and everybody trying to hoard and get what they need because they are fearful that it's not going to be enough,
Mm,
that's where you have problems.
mhm. It's the zero sum game, right? I remember I have a little story about that illustrates that. When I was in elementary school, there was at least where I was when I was in Alberta, they had the popsicle brand popsicles, and inside each popsicle there was a points, and so sometimes you get five. Usually it was 5 points, sometimes it'd be 10 points, sometimes it'd be 25 points. So you had to finish the popsicle to know how many points you got. And I think some of them very rarely had like 100 points. And
Wow.
anyways, popsicles for that year or that summer or whatever had it was a contest, and you could put in your points, and you can get prizes. That started at, like, you could get like a ball cap or a ball or a t-shirt, all these little things. But I think it was like 10,000 points or so, and you could get a stereo system, like a boom box. And it was like, oh my
Wow.
goodness, that's really cool. But you need to eat a lot of popsicles, right? Anyways, I learned this. There was the year that was 1 year older than the grade I was in, and I think I was probably in grade maybe 3 or 4. What they decided as a class was to pool all of their popsicles. And
Mm.
they got the stereo system. And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? You know, And I think that's that idea when we do see beyond just the self, where we see that the self is actually like more akin to the cell. Like we're all symbiotic beings upon Mother Earth. That I think in my heart of hearts, I feel like we are our happiest when we are stewards, when we are caring neighbors to one another, when we are um, thinking of, the grandmother across the streets that's maybe lonely, or that neighbor that needs a hand with something. When we're a being of service, when we're contributing, I feel like we're more in that element and we're out of that survival. But when we're thinking just of ourselves, it's easier to go in survival. But I feel like that popsicle stick story really carried with me for my whole life, because I realized, like, if we just think about it like as a thought experiment here, Devin, imagine everyone on Earth, um, even just the 99%, like forget the 1% in the world, the 99% of people in the world all put their, even not all, not their, even their things, just their money in one big collective bank account. Imagine that. And anyone can access it for whatever they need. It would be like this ocean of money. And what are you gonna like if you know it's there? Well, that it would immediately take off the burden. But when we're all have our self thing and it's limited, and some people have figured out the game better, and some people are doing, I feel like it would be such a different reality if we actually learn to share our resources, just like cells in our body do. They have to cooperate. I mean, if you have one group of cells that is taking from the rest of your body, well, we have a word for that. That's cancer, right? It's an
Right.
overgrowth of the system. So I feel like as we find our way back, and I think it is through the levels of self-awareness, that we can return to more homeostasis and more of an equilibrium and peace in our bodies, because we're part of a bigger body too. At least that's my perception.
I like what you said, and it immediately made me think about the hierarchy of needs
Mm.
and fractal patterns. Um, you know fractal patterns, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The
Well, for
repeating.
the audience, if they don't know, a fractal pattern is basically when you zoom into the micro, you see a pattern, and when you zoom out to the macro, you see the same pattern.
Mm.
So, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, you got survival. There's basic, physical needs, food, water, and shelter. And then in the middle, there are like social needs because we are social creatures. And at the top is self-actualization, being the true version of yourself or the best version of yourself. You need tools at each stage to go to the next stage. Uh, in the beginning, there weren't the basic tools were survival tools. You were limited by geography.
Mm.
Um, there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was no. I could talk to somebody in Australia right now. I'm in Baltimore. It could be instantaneous communication.
It's amazing.
As time has progressed and as technology has progressed, the human race has progressed up this hierarchy of needs.
Mm.
So much so that now in 2026, we have all the tools, some of us in certain areas of the world have all the tools we need to meet our survival needs and our social needs. And now we can focus on becoming the best version of ourselves. Whereas though thousands of years ago, they couldn't focus on being the best version of themselves because they were trying to survive.
Mm.
They
Mm.
didn't have the tools that we have now. And when I talk about parents, a lot of parents, they was doing the best that they could with the tools that they had at the time.
Mm. Yeah.
Nobody was having a conversation like we having right now. Nobody was talking about emotional intelligence
Yeah.
and having a podcast and sharing stories like this. You were limited by geography and your sphere of influence, the people that you grew up with in your neighborhood. You couldn't get a different perspective from somebody thousands of miles away,
Hmm.
but now we can.
Hmm.
We are responsible to do the best that we can with the tools that we have today.
Mm. Mm.
And that's why I just think it's just more, it accelerates and it compound interest. And it'll be more and more as we go through this fourth turning and as the things change, where the old system dies off and the new system comes to life. And I think that's why it's so important to do what you do, Nathaniel, when having these conversations, having this podcast to bring light to these conversations and awareness. How can you solve a problem that you're not aware of?
Mm, mm,
How can you intentionally solve a problem that you're not aware of for the long term? Because you can fix something by accident,
mhm,
but when
mhm,
it breaks again, you don't know what happened. You don't know how you fix it. You can't fix it
mm,
again. I'm about long-term solutions,
mm,
intentional solutions. That requires awareness. That requires understanding. How can you fix something that you don't understand? There was a time when I was young, people would talk about your why. You got to know your why and understand the problems. And back then, immature, I would say, I don't care about why. Just tell me the step-by-step process. Tell me what to do so I can do it. It's cause and effect.
mhm.
But once you try to implement the cause and effect, once you try to implement the step-by-step process, what gets in the way a lot of time is internal struggles, fear, doubt,
Yeah,
self-esteem,
yeah.
all these intangible things get in the way. So I learned the value of understanding.
Mm,
Solomon said, and all you're getting, get understanding. If you understand, if your car break down and you understand why it broke down, then you can fix it when it breaks. But if you don't know
mm,
why, if you don't understand it, you can't fix it. People are the same way. If you understand people, then you can fix them when they break. But
mm,
if you don't understand people, you don't know what to do.
mm,
And you're left there confused. A lot of time people go into survival mode because they're confused. They don't know what to do.
mhm.
It's fearful. I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
So now I'm afraid. This is out of my comfort zone.
yeah.
You got to expand your comfort zone. Not get out of your comfort zone, expand your comfort zone where more stuff is inside your comfort zone.
Mhm.
You do that by experience,
Yeah,
your own experience and leveraging this experience of others.
yeah,
That's why it's so important to have these conversations, to leverage the experience of others. This is how you compound interest. This is how you accelerate. This is how it moves faster and faster and faster.
mm,
Almost like AI. You got all of these people using the same chat GPT and it's learning from everybody. And it's all
yeah.
into one central brain,
Mhm.
one central consciousness. How much could we get done if we had a collective consciousness where we all was working towards the same goal? Just
Yeah,
like the Lord said, the creator of the universe, he said it. Nothing can be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do because they on the same page.
mhm,
He
mhm.
created everything.
Yeah.
He is true. I could go on and on and on, Nathaniel. I'm not going to take over the
No,
thing.
no, I really appreciate it. And I think it speaks to our infinite, eternal, creative capacity, which is, the as we are in the image of that creator. And I think that this is, to me, I'm an eternal optimist. We just have, unique language, and I think different resources that we draw upon in terms of that philosophy, which is the love of wisdom. And as you were talking, it occurred to me, so many of the times when we talk about philosophy, we put it as a external thing, right? Like it's, the philosophers, or we talk about having a doctorate of philosophy, or this thing. Again, it's another level of identity. But when you look at it purely as the love of wisdom, then you can learn from anyone. You can learn from King Solomon. You can learn from Christ. You can learn from Buddha. You can learn from Muhammad. You can learn from our neighbors and our elders. You can learn from our children. And there is an internal wisdom that happens not only from our experience, but from the collective experience. And it's interesting. Everyone's running toward AI. It's a super powerful tool. Not maybe not everyone, but I think one of the most important conversations to have in this. I was talking with a pioneer in AI, and he calls it RI. He's like the distinction between AI, which I think we improperly, or it's not the full picture, calling it artificial, as if we create intelligence. I think that is a big assumption that we're making as a species. But he talks about RI, real intelligence. I like to think of it as DI, divine intelligence, and I feel like it's really important that we form a really good relationship with that, whatever it means to us, because it has such a deeper comprehension and intimate knowledge of who we really are compared to um, something like an AI that, like you said, we're programming, we're putting our all, and you can put a lot of even false or egoic and identity, and we know these systems hallucinate, and that's a whole other conversation. But I don't think there's any hallucination happening when it comes to our creator, and it's profound, deep, not only intelligence, like to me, it's the highest intelligence in like you said, creator of the universe, not just the universe itself, but the creator of the universe. This is a creative potential and source of being. It's also intimately aware of all aspects of us when you talk about, Myers-Briggs and all these things. I think on all levels and layers and dimensions of who we really are, it knows us. So I feel like one of the most sacred and important work that we can do, at least in my perception, like in becoming a young, well, you could debate being young, but being a new father, I find that that seeing my child having a sacred relationship with them, it really has made me pause a lot to wonder about how does how does my creator see me? How does my creator love me? Because if I'm just like a candle lit by the sun in my love for my daughter and my appreciation for her and seeing her development, like how does our creator really perceive us? And I feel like this is a beautiful contemplation that can lead us deeper into a relationship with it, with that presence and that yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. Um, yeah, how does the creator look at us? He is called Father. We fathers, we are called fathers. We are made in his image. We are to be like him.
Mhm.
How is he? He is loving, patient, but he also can be uh, disciplined. He know what's best for you. Right. They say experience is the best teacher. That's the one thing children don't have. Children don't have experience.
Mhm.
Parents have the experience. The creator has all the experience. The creator knows everything. So he knows what it takes to help you be the best version of yourself. He knows what it takes to get you through situations.
Mm.
The same way a parent knows what it takes, or they ought to know if they are observant, if they take the time to get to know their child,
Hmm.
if they notice the patterns, a parent will be able to know what their child needs to get through the struggles.
Yeah.
Um, we are like him, our kids are like us. Kids not only inherit physical features, you might have your mom's nose or your dad's eyes. Kids also inherit mental and emotional features.
Mm.
So the more you get to know yourself, the more you can get to know your child.
Mm.
You start with the man in the mirror. Take some time to pause and reflect. How did you feel when you was a child? How did you feel when you was in that situation? And what did you need to get through that situation? There's a
Hmm.
high probability that they need the same thing.
Yeah. 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 One of the gifts my parents gave me, as much as, like you said, all of our parents do the best with the tools they have. I feel like our my parents' generation came from a lot of just emotional dysfunction
Mm,
and hard and probably their parents came from very hard times. I think my parents' times were there was a lot of abundance. When I look at some of the vehicles and things that they had, man, like things were well made. There was a lot more access. They were buying a house basically for an average salary of a year. I think in a lot of ways times are much harder now for younger people, and yet the tools we have are also more powerful. So it's paradoxical in that way, but one of the things that they would communicate a lot to me and they would ask me questions. Like when I remember one summer I started hanging around maybe the wrong kind of influence in terms of the kids that I met, and my parents, instead of telling me I couldn't play with them, they just said, you know, who you hang around in life is going to be a big part of the kind of life you have, and so, you know, be wise in who you choose So they really give that choice to me who I hang out with, and that was, and they always communicated. And one of the things my dad always says is, take the best and leave the rest. And I feel like that was good self-awareness to know that they didn't have all of the answers and the best maybe mental models or emotional tools, and so that I need to grow upon that and take that to the next level. And that's certainly my intention
Exactly.
as a parent.
Exactly. Take that and go to the next level. Each generation should not be starting at zero.
Yeah.
Each generation
Right.
should pick up where the last one left off and
Hmm.
press forward.
Hmm.
I agree.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's at the heart of evolution, right? I think we've been told evolution, from a scientific lens is, this adaptation. I mean, even Darwin knew that it wasn't about survival of the fittest. It really is, I think, survival of the most cooperative in life, the ones who find the most harmonious and aligned strategies for working together. Like you said, we do need to work together, but I also feel like there's no error that the word love is in evolution, just flipped into itself. I feel like it happens within our lifespan. It happens within our journey. We actually do evolve our and through our families and our as we contribute to the ancestral lineage that we perpetuate. And I think, at least when it comes to Lightheart Vision, the intent is to build conscious bridges between conscious parents like yourself, between entrepreneurs who are innovators and creating new ways of doing things, between artists who I feel like have a role to expand our consciousness, to cause us ponderance and to wonder about things and creative ways of being and knowing that we might not see when we're in our A to B mundane life, and also between our educators, which the root word of educator is to educe, educare, like to bring or draw out what is within, not to impose a bunch of facts and dates and knowledge that may not even be accurate on children. And I feel like at the heart of it is really all about this, creating a foundation that is in alignment so that our children can grow and sprout from that abundant life that Christ talks about, from that way of being where we are in harmony with our Creator and we're not needing to go in fear and fight or flight as much, if at all, because we know that it is our provider. It is there as our parent, our true parent in all moments of our existence.
Yeah. Um, you said something at the beginning of what you just said about evolution, love. You said
Love turned into itself.
love turned into itself. There was this thought of um acceleration,
Mm,
trial and error. How can you accelerate? Um, Basically, let me come back to what our MBTI,
yeah.
personality types, patterns,
Mm,
behavior patterns. What I see in the whole system is a 10-year head start. We talk about relationships.
mm,
If you had to work with somebody one on one throughout the years, it would take you a certain period of time to figure out that this person is like this.
mhm,
But if you could notice patterns, you could have a high probability idea of that the person is like this. So that means I should do this
mm,
because they behave
mm,
like this. I know I keep saying this, but it's so when you have a relationships fail due to many reasons, but one big reason is being incompatible.
mm,
Once you know the behavior patterns that are incompatible and the behavior patterns that are compatible, you can raise the probabilities for success. I don't believe in a lot of cut and dry, yes or no, off or on. I think
mm.
very few things in life are binary.
Yeah.
Many things in life are on a range, a spectrum, a scale, a percentage weight.
Yeah.
That's why I use this phrase high probability. I can't say it's a 100%, yes, but it's a high probability. So you can plan with the high probability. And I don't know why I keep coming back to this idea, but I got this critic in my head that's always like, "Oh, you can't plan." Because somebody told me you
Mm,
can't plan for the future. It's too many variables. But I don't agree with that. Yes, you
mm,
can. Maybe you can't plan for the future, but I can plan for the future. Us
yeah,
people who are conscious and observe the patterns, we can plan for the future.
yeah.
You don't get a flat tire every time you go to work, but
Right.
sometimes you do.
Yeah. Well,
So
that
what is your go ahead, what you about to say?
Oh, I was going to say that's our level of care, right? It's being preventative, and it's I think there's a lot of value in planning, but it's I think the act of planning isn't so much about arriving to the future. It's about being um, cognizant and aware that there is universal laws in existence that are cause and effect. I mean, you if you plant an apple a tree, you're not going to grow oranges. That's not
Right.
how nature works. So there is, I certainly think, and I mean, I think a big part of the evolution of our society has been about recognizing that we can actually plan like based on seasons. I mean, if we went from winter into fall and then winter again and never had a summer, I don't think we would last more than a year as a society. Like we wouldn't know like, oh, we harvest and like so clearly there is cycles and patterns in things. So no, I agree with you. I think there is a sentiment though that there are we it's I think it goes back to this basic relationship is like if you are trying to control everything external to you and that is the your modus operandi in life and you're not allowing yourself to relax and be in flow state and recognize that there is a mastermind behind you and that has always provided for you because I mean I'll be honest with you, I've talked to millionaires who have confessed to me that they are worried about losing their money. So is that abundant life when we have gathered and hoarded so much and we're looking around because we're worried? Because in the letters, and I think in the Bible too, it was his first public teaching after his Christhood was to tell us to not worry, knowing that we have our Creator that provides us like the perfect parent would to fulfill all of our needs. But it's our worries and it's our own resistance that causes the very lack that we are afraid of because we focus so much on the fear of those things. I'm paraphrasing a lot, but that is my awareness. So I think it's like a fine line, man. Like it's like we can't just be completely flippant and just be like, well, I'm not gonna take care of anything because I know my needs will always be prepared for. Because I feel like we need to surrender or we need to prepare ourselves to surrender to that level too. Like it's not, you don't just show up in chaos and for a party, with he talks about getting prepared for the party means going through the cleansing process that we need to prepare ourselves to be in that party. So I feel like it's like so much in life.
Balance.
Yeah, it's balance and it's also paradox, right? I feel like paradox is such a doorway to um, awakening. And the challenge with paradox is we need to hold dichotomy. Like you said, there's so much nuance, right? Like one of my contemplations for a long time before my some of my earlier awakening experiences were the paradox of like Zeno's paradox is a paradox of space and time, right? So if you're standing at a certain space in time and there is a wall, if you were to half that distance and there's a certain measure of time that would cause you to travel towards the wall, and then you realize, okay, there's another halfway point between this moment in time and touching the wall. And so there's always requires time. The paradox is that continues to ad infinitum. So it means that we actually never arrive at touching the wall. And that is a contemplation of space and our relationship in time. And we know that actually, scientifically, that nothing is solid, that everything is actually 99.999% space. And he talks about this direct experience. He had this realization after his awakening as well. And so it's a paradox, but it's also like, but we touch the wall. Like I can feel my hand here, like I can feel it. So what is that? What's the in between? And anyways, this has been a little bit more into the abstract than maybe I intended, Devin. But if paradox does cause us to wonder, like if what we know is true, like you said, like the assumption is like, well, it's just a solid wall. But scientifically, we say, well, actually, it's not solid, it's vibrating particles. And so I think it's those moments that cause us to pause. Like, it's not just about smelling the flower, it's wondering who created this flower and how did it create such beauty, and why beauty at all? Why is beauty so prevalent in all of nature? Like, why is there a care of beauty? Why is, so all these contemplations, I feel like they cause us to pause in the moment. And I think it happens for me in the sacred moments of being a father and watching, knowing that these little moments that I have with my daughter, like I see her grow so like develop so fast, like every day is a new day. And I'm like, I'm never going to have these moments again with her where she's, right, like I'm carrying her, I'm doing this with her. It's like it's always this precious sacred experience. Yeah.
That's one thing that I'm a professional photographer. I've been shooting photography for the last 10 to 12 years. And that's one big thing is capturing those moments. Because like you said, you can't go back. But you can capture it, you can freeze it and take it with you into the future. And that's another reason why, if you listen to this, if you're a parent, listen to this, get some prints.
Mhm.
Print those pictures out. Instead of keeping them on your phone, keep them on your hard drive, print them out, put them in a little picture book so you can go back and look at them. Because 20 years from now, you're going to be glad you took all them pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes people shy away. Oh, don't take pictures of me. Oh, I don't like pictures. And 20 years from now, you're going to wish you took them pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know that about you. I appreciate that, Devin, and I really appreciate that experience, that expression as well. Yeah, the moments are sacred, man.
Yeah.
What? So I have to ask you before we get into like how people can, connect with you and all that. What is your higher vision of our world? What would you like to see in this time of change? How would you like to see our evolution, so to speak?
I mean, ideally, as an idealist,
Yeah.
as an ENFP, I would say for people to just know themselves and to be curious enough to know others
Mhm.
and to behave in alignment with reality instead of your assumptions.
Mhm.
To behave in alignment with objective reality, not your subjective emotions. Because we live in a real world, we live in a tangible world.
Mhm.
I can touch this microphone, even though you say I'm not touching the microphone, but
Well,
we
paradoxically, you are touching the microphone. I think that's what makes it really beautiful and special, right? It's not that you're
yeah.
not, it's that you are, but on a very theoretical level, you're not.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's that space is touching us all the while, and that's where that's where the universal is always embracing all of its creation is in that space. I think space is very, very, very full with love. I don't feel like it's empty or void, as the scientists would say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I love how you bring it back to curiosity, I think that actually is one of the fundamental qualities of childhood that is universal.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, curiosity, to want
Yeah.
to learn more. Sometimes people just close their brain off because they're afraid. They are
Well,
afraid. I've heard somebody tell me, he said that I was afraid that if I was wrong about this thing, then what else am I wrong about?
mm, mm.
So I shut it out. I don't want to know the truth because that means all this other stuff is wrong too. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
No,
That's what
you
they
gotta
call,
walk. Go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead, finish your
Now I'm
thought
just
there.
gonna say you gotta walk in reality because reality don't change based on your feelings, based on your fears.
Mm, mm,
What's
mm,
true is true. You can't avoid it. So you
mm,
might as well. If you can't beat them, join them. You might as well go in alignment with reality.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. In Pali, they say muha, it's ignorance. And people, it's funny, like, okay, here's two memes, aphorisms, right? People say ignorance is bliss.
Mm,
Well, it's not bliss. It will eventually lead to a startling wake-up call with reality, because there is a truth to reality, absolutely. And the other thing, people say with respect to curiosity, what's the number one thing that if someone says something about curiosity, if you're a grown up, what do people tell one another?
what's the worst that could happen?
Well, no, like with
Curiosity killed the cat.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So what does that instill? Like it's a meme that it bypasses the conscious brain, goes in the subconscious, and all of a sudden you get to a certain age, you're like, well, I don't want to die. Like that's the
Right.
primary fear, right? Killed the cat, right? Like I don't want to be too curious, and so that it prevents a certain level of exploration. That one thing, if that's in your subconscious mind, and so I feel like that's part of the cleansing process that happens when we start doing these levels of self-awareness. Be like, oh, that's an interesting thought. Is it true? And just bringing it back to
Is it true?
is it true? And
Is
and
it
that's where
true?
the curiosity kind of reignites, right? What's beyond that horizon? Is it true that those people who we were told are who are not who are of a different belief that they are evil? Is that true? Because everywhere I've gone in the world, it's funny in Canada, there's Canada in the people in Canada, I find through the education system, like all of us, we are conditioned to believe things about others, right? And I find there's a lot of arrogance. The Canadian culture is presented as very kind and like, but I find when I listen to a lot of conversation, there's a lot of judgmentalism. It's like,
Mm.
especially towards our Southern brothers and sisters, and I'm like, Americans are arrogant and stuff, and they're louder, and we're quieter. We're very polite, and we apologize for everything, even though we didn't do anything wrong. But it's so funny. Every time I've gone anywhere in the world, and I haven't done an extensive amount of traveling other than in the United States, but everywhere I go, people are, for the most part, very kind, very considerate, very good natured. I think human beings in general are good natured. But if you listen and you never go and explore,
Hmm.
you never go into that country because, oh, those, and so that belief limits your experience, limits your level of wisdom. And so I feel like that curiosity, to me, that's going to be a big takeaway from this conversation is like wondering about that universal quality of curiosity because I think it's what makes explorers, it's what makes innovators, it's what makes painters. Yeah.
Is it true? That's the question. Is it true? How do you know? Well, one thing that the media, how we talked about earlier, the people are one. Nothing can be refrained from them, which they have imagined to do. They
Mhm.
have the image in their minds. So how powerful is it to control the image in your mind? The mass media, you say that when you travel, you find that many people are kind, are net positive.
Mhm.
But if you watch the mass media, they will have you believe
Mhm.
that most people are net negative. Why? To keep you in fear,
Mhm.
to control you, to keep you in this fight, flight, or freeze, keep you in survival mode.
Mhm.
And they can tell you, oh, we're doing this for your safety.
Mhm.
Because at the base level, everybody's trying to survive. We
Mhm.
want to be safe. So the mass media is to control the narrative, to control the imagination, to keep you fearful so they can control you. So question everything. Is it true? How do you
Mhm.
know? I saw this thing on the news. How do you know that's true?
Mhm.
Chat GPT told me this thing. How do I know that that's true? I heard somebody say curiosity killed the cat. How do you know that's true?
Mhm.
Go and verify. Trust but verify.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
I question everything.
yeah, and it brings up actually, I think one of the most important qualities that we can nurture in our children, especially during this time where so much is being generated. I mean, we're seeing videos that look like hyper
Yeah,
realistic that are just AI generated. And I've watched my parents looking at some of these things. I mean, I don't do any social media. I wouldn't even consider school social media. That's my only go-to. But I was watching my parents and they were like watching this video and it was like hyper realistic, but it's clearly not real
yeah.
to my eyes that knows how to see, AI things. And they're like, "Do you think that's real?" And I
Mm.
said, What do you think? So that quality of discernment, I feel, is so crucial in this day and age. And it's interesting you brought up the media. I think this is a good way to kind of bring full picture to this. I mentioned the letters a little bit during our talk, but in letter one, he is so clear that the beast stalking our lands and our minds and our children and everything is actually the media and all of its wayward ways and deceitful, perversive ways. That's actually what's eroding consciousness. And he talks about our collective consciousness because it's creative. And like you said, the imagination uh, does nothing is held from us. It's actually our collective imagination that he talks about. Our consciousness is what's affecting the climate and all of the challenges, the plagues, even viruses and all these things are created from our consciousness. And so I think one of the big conversations with that needs to be had with conscious parents is addressing the media that is inherently deceptive because they are profiting off of deceit and untruth, because it does exactly and we saw it very much during the lockdowns. When people are put into fear, they're very controllable. And so I think the only remedy and true solution to all of this is love. And I think love, this quote came to me years ago from a divine place, is like love is, or sorry, evolution is love's solution. And so we must transcend our
Wow.
limited to, yeah, evolution is love's solution. And we're at a point, I think a critical point, where he says in letter one, too, urgent need for a higher vision. So when we talk about this vision and how we see one another, how we see each other coming together in communities, what we see ourselves building, it is so urgent that we have a higher vision of one another, a higher vision of the world, and also a higher vision of our own personal life, because our consciousness is creative. And I'd love for you to send me that direct quote from the Bible. I think it's probably one of the most powerful quotes, and no one has ever told me that before. And I've probably maybe read over it, glanced over it before, Devin. But I'd love to know
I'll
exactly
send
where
it.
that is. Yeah,
I'll send it to you. It's in Genesis.
in Genesis. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
send it to you. Boy, yeah, this has been fantastic, Nathaniel. I think
Appreciate it.
the audience, I hope they got some value from it. I'm pretty sure they did. And I'm looking forward to reading all your comments in the
Yeah, me too.
audience. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Devin. How can people find you? I know you have a workshop coming up, Less Pushback, More Cooperation on June 22nd. And tell us more about your school community and what's the best ways of connecting with you, Devin.
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at the Proactive Parent Podcast. You can find me on school, the Proactive Parent Community. I am doing a workshop in a few weeks. If you want to type in the URL, register.devintrent.com, you'll get all the details about the workshop, how to have less pushback and more cooperation from your child.
Amazing. Amazing. I really appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you for up leveling the conversation around being a proactive parent, and for being who you are, man. I really appreciate you as a community builder, as a proactive father as well. And I really appreciate your perspectives. I'm just going to ask you this one last thing before we sign
Sure.
off for today. If you had a magic megaphone and you can talk to the whole world all at once, and everyone could hear you, what would you share?
Everything is not for everybody. Self-awareness will reveal what is for you.
Mm. I
That's what I
love
say.
that, man. I love that. Very profound. Yeah. Yeah. Makes me think of a lot of things. I'm gonna leave that with the audience to contemplate what that means for them. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Blessings to
Thank
you
you.
and all those who you touch. And to our listeners as well, best wishes and highest blessings to all of you. And may you make those moments for that deeper connection that we've talked about this whole conversation. So thanks so much. And unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to invite our
Ah,
daughter to say thanks.
no, I'm good. I'll see you in school.
See you in school, bro. All right, I'm just going to invite Luciana to come up and thank us all for watching here. This is a little dated now. She was just a year, maybe a year and a half when she did this, and now so we got to do a new one. But here she is. So enjoy, everyone. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.